Evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the FASA Career Series on exploring career prospects outside the AEC industry for architecture students. Today, we are honored to host Mr. Tola T.A. Alabi, an esteemed alumnus of the Department of Architecture, Obafemi Awolowo University, who has carved a niche for himself outside the traditional architecture practice. With an extensive background in business consulting, coaching, and brand identity design, Mr. T.A. Alabi has a wealth of experience to share. This session aims to provide insights into alternative career paths for architecture students, drawing from his diverse professional journey and practical advice for starting our career journeys. Once again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Twitter Space session on Should All Architecture Students Become Architects? I am Adewumi Emmanuel Fadili, a Part 2 architecture student of Obafemi Awolowo University, and I will be your host for this session. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Tola T.A. Alabi, an influential thought leader and founder of Tola Alabi Consulting. Mr. Alabi is also the creator of ProUp Masterclass YouTube channel and podcast, where he shares his expertise in business consulting, coaching, and mentoring. Mr. Alabi's journey is an inspiring example of how an architecture education can be a springboard into diverse and impactful career paths. From founding his own consulting firm to creating high-impact brand identities, he has continuously evolved and adapted his skills to meet new challenges. We are excited to learn from his experiences and gain valuable insights that can help us navigate our own career paths. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Alabi to share his story with us. Mr. Alabi, the floor is yours, sir.
Hi, Adewumi. How you doing? Thanks for having me. I hope you all can hear me clearly. Can you hear me, Adewumi? Is it clear enough?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're clear, sir.
All right, great. Thanks for the introduction and great to be here today. As I've been introduced, my name is Tola Alabi, and I am a teacher and a creative, and I'm very honored to be here tonight to speak to you because as Adewumi has said earlier on, about 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, I think about 22 years this year, I was graduating from Obafemi Awolowo University Department of Architecture, and it's the first time I'm getting to actually have an official reconnection with IFASA again. And so it's really honoring. It's very different for me, 22 years after, to have the opportunity to talk to you guys. Adewumi is in 200 level. And that I remember when I was in 200 level, it was one of the most trying times of my life, because that was when we were going into architecture fully. So when he said it, you just took me back those many years, and just to see that you're at that level right now, I'm very grateful to be able to talk to people like you, because at that time, one of the things I needed the most was somebody to talk to me and make me calm down from all the pressure and worry I was feeling in school at that time. So I think one of the first things I want to do is just to thank you guys for reaching out to me. I'm very honored that you guys reached out to me. Thank you, Tim. I think Tim has been in communication with me for a while now, and it's a big honor, to be honest with you, to have a younger generation reach out to me. I find it more honorable than having even more established people reach out to me when I have younger people reach out to me, because I realize that longevity is when you can connect to people that are coming after you. But a lot of times we tend to aim for the people that are ahead of us because they have the financial power. But then their financial influence will wane with time, and it will be transmitted to those that are coming after you. And so it's always an honor to be here with you guys. Um, so I don't know what the modality of today is going to be, whether it's going to be question and answer. Adewumi, just let me know, or if I'm just meant to talk for a while and then we take questions. And so, as I was telling Tim earlier, that I think I can just spare like an hour and a half to this. So let me know what exactly is going to be the modality of things. How is this conversation meant to go? Are you going to ask me questions, or is it just going to be me just talking?
Okay, thank you, sir. So you'll be speaking to us about your career journey, your transition from architecture to other industries, highlighting key experiences and lessons learned. Then afterwards, we'll move to the Q&A session, then the closing remarks, sir.
All right, great. All right, that sounds fine. All right, so yeah, the topic for today is a very interesting topic. Should all architecture students become architects? That's a great topic, and I really wish, as I said earlier, I wish when I was entering school, somebody came and spoke to us on this kind of subject matter. Um, because you studied architecture, does that mean you have to be an architect or work as an architect? That is, designing houses and designing spaces for people. Now, I know most of you here are probably architecture students. Some of you might not be. But this doesn't just have to do with architecture students. So what I'm going to talk about has very little to talk to about, very little to do with architecture as a subject matter, but has more to do with occupation and education. So if you are here, you are studying anything, medicine, law, Greek, business, whatever it is, you are still welcome here. So whenever I just say architecture, just attach it or align it to whatever it is, subject matter it is you are studying. Yeah, for a lot of you might know that I don't work as an architect anymore. I worked as an architect for 1 year after leaving Obafemi Awolowo University, and that work I did as an architect was during my NYSC, and that was the last time I ever worked as an architect. And you know, it has been a very interesting journey for me, because people keep asking me, "Ah, why did you leave architecture? Why architecture was so promising now? Architects earn so much money, compared to, because then I was doing graphic design. Compared to graphic designers, there isn't enough money in this. Like a job that an architect would do, one job can pay for what a graphic designer would earn in 1 year. So the question was, why did I jump ship? Why did I leave this thing that had so much promise, for something that had very little promise in Nigeria at that time? And I'll tell you, but I'll start out by addressing this issue. Should all architecture students become architects? I think it would be a catastrophe if every single person that went to study architecture graduated and started to practice architecture. Not only should it not be, it's going to be catastrophic for you as architects. You understand? If you study architecture and everybody in every single set, I don't know how many you are per set here, but let's imagine that, in each of your sets, for you guys that are in school, if you're in year 2, year 3, year 4, whatever year you're in, think of how many of you are in your set. So let me use Adewumi a as as an example. Adewumi, in your class, how many are you right now? How many are you?
We're 56 in number, sir.
You are 56 in number.
Yes, sir.
All right, so you are 56. So you have 56 people in year 2 of Obafemi Awolowo University Architecture Department. 56. So let's assume that is a consistent number. Now the question is we are to ask is how many universities do we have in Nigeria at the moment? At the moment, I think we have about 270 something, 274, 276. I can't remember. I searched it the other day, but I think 270 something. So let's just estimate that to 300 because they keep popping up every single day. And so you have 300. And out of that 300, yes, not every school offers architecture. So let's cut out 100 schools that do not offer architecture. So we have 200 schools that offer architecture. And each year, like um, um, Adewumi's class, we have a set of 56 people. So let's even build that to a round figure. Let's say 60. We have 60 people graduate from that Department of Architecture in these 200 schools all over the Federation. And so that means each year we are going to be launching out about 1,200. Is my math right? Or 12,000? I think it's going to be 12,000. 12,000 architects in Nigeria every single year. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is that does Nigeria have a knowledge gap of 12,000 architecture knowledgeable people? Is the need for architecture as much as 12,000 people being released every single year to work as architects? This is where we really need to ask ourselves that question. Um, do we need that many architects per year in Nigeria? And I don't think we do. If you're going to be realistic with ourselves, we don't need 12,000 people designing spaces and designing houses released every single year. That means in 2 years, we would have 24,000 in 24,000 added to that list. In 3 years, we will have 36,000, and it keeps growing like that. So we don't need that many people. That need for designing spaces or designing houses or designing structures is not as heavy as increasing by 12,000 people every single year. So what that means is that a lot of you, if we all came out and became architects, would become unemployed or unemployable. You understand? There will be no accommodation for you in architectural firms because that need is not just there to design spaces like that. And why is that need not there? The need is not there because architecture as a subject matter, and this is what I feel your university professors or lecturers should tell you, is that that bubble has burst. That bubble called architecture as an occupation, as a knowledge that you need a professional for, has burst. And it didn't just burst, it burst even before I left school. And do you know how I realized it has burst? Because in my final year, I met a man who was a diplomat from Sierra Leone. And he came to Nigeria and he heard I was studying architecture. So he took a liking to me. And one day I went to visit him in his house and he told me he was being redeployed back to Sierra Leone and he wanted to give me some of his architectural material that he had because he didn't want to travel back with them. So he gave me a stack of magazines. And these magazines were called Architectural Digest. Architectural Digest. I think they are called AD now. If you are looking for them on YouTube, it's called AD. Just type Architectural Digest on YouTube. They're still very much existing. But then they were a print magazine, and this guy had almost about 50 or 60 of them. He was subscribed to them, and he packed them for me, and I took them home. And I looked at them every single night, looking at all the wonderful houses and structures that were built in the US, in the UK, you understand, all over the world. But as I read the articles, one thing occurred to me was that most of the houses, these flamboyant, incredible designs, were not designed by architects. Every time I read Architectural Digest and I saw houses, about 60% of them were designed by non-architects and the remaining 40 by architects. So they show you houses and they say it was designed by so and his wife. They are both lawyers. So and her husband, they are both um, fashion, they are both into fashion. This person is a football player, and they all designed their house themselves. And this one I'm telling you was over 20 years ago in the US. 20 years ago, before the advent of social media and before the internet even became what it is today, people were already designing houses themselves, award-winning houses. The only thing they needed the architects for was that stamp of approval of the plan. But they were drafting their houses themselves. The concept was the people belonged to the people. The people were the ones designing, lawyers, engineers, doctors. They were the ones actually designing these houses. 1 minute, please. My son is making noise out there. Just give me 1 minute. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so that what I realized that most of the houses were not even designed by architects. They were designed by other professionals. And that's the thing, that bubble has burst. And that was then in the US, but it's becoming like that in Nigeria. About a week ago, um, I saw my daughter drawing. She was drawing for, for hours. And I was kind of busy. I didn't ask her what she was doing. And afterwards, I said, "What have you been drawing all day?" So she went and she brought her sketch pad to me. And she showed me, said, I'm drawing our new house. And I looked at it, and she had drawn a plan. She had drawn a plan. It was a functional plan, although there were some circulation issues and some ventilation issues, but it was functional. You understand? It was functional. And what impressed me the most was that she had used the appropriate symbols for windows, doors, archways, and for rooms, everything. She had drawn it very well. It wasn't a bubble diagram. It was a plan, but it wasn't to scale. But the idea was functional. And I was amazed because I'd never ever shown her anything, because they were not born into me being an architect. They were born into me being a graphic designer. So I was surprised that she was able to represent a plan. I said, "Where did you learn this? How did you know the representation for a door, for a window, for archways? How did you know?" And she said, "I just checked on Pinterest and I asked them, how do you draw an architectural plan? And what's the symbol for doors? How do you represent a door?" And they showed her on Pinterest. On Pinterest, in one day, my daughter did a crash course in architecture, drawing a plan. Zero experience. 11-year-old drew a plan. 11-year-old. And that day I knew that, wow, this architecture thing, as a profession, cannot live very long if all you're doing is designing spaces. That bubble has burst. That information has spread into the streets. It's very accessible. And the earlier you know that, the less disappointed you will be when you leave school. It has burst. If my 11-year-old daughter can draw a plan from Pinterest and no representations, what do you think she'll be doing when she's 18? If she consistently does this for the next 7 years, will she really need an architectural degree? And this brings me to that subject matter of how important is this 4-year course that we do. 4-year course, one of the best things that Ife has done, I don't know if Ife is still doing that, is that giving you the opportunity to leave after 4 years as opposed to staying 6 years and getting your MSc. That's one of the best things that happened in my life, because I can't imagine if I had to stay for 2 years to do a compulsory mandatory master's degree with that. It could have been 2 years of a waste of my life. Because I'll let you know something. There is no academic course in the world today, and I mean no academic course, that is worth staying in school for 4 years for anymore in this world. I don't care what the subject matter is. 4 years, nothing. There's no academic course, not even medicine, worth 4 years. So if you are in school right now staying 4 years, you are already, for lack of a better word, you're already being duped. Because 4 years, there's nothing that is worth staying in school for 4 years. There's no knowledge that takes 4 years to learn in today's world anymore. Chalkless architecture. None. There's none. Absolutely none. That you cannot learn in a time of 1 year to 2 years, max. With the way information is, 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2 years, you can do incredible things with architecture. So I feel the problem is education, number one, has become, number one, too expensive, and two, it has become the duration has become too long. And that's the biggest problem that we have with education today. Education today takes too long and costs too much. And this sacrifice of time and money is what's causing people to commit to studies and career paths that they have no real interest in. So education is taking too long and is costing too much. And this sacrifice of time and money is what is causing people to commit to studies and career paths that they have no real interest in. What they are thinking of is time sunk and money sunk. That's what they are thinking of. So a lot of people will become architects because, when I spent 6 years old, when I spent 4 years old, do you know how much money I spent buying all those materials and stuff like that? A lot of you will think of time sunk. And that's the problem with education today. That 4, 5 years, 6 years, 7 year courses that are not teaching you more than what you can learn in a year of committed knowledge. Do you understand? There's nothing. The problem is that the educational institution has become a business. So if they keep you there for 4 years, you are paying 4 years rent. Do you understand? But it's not like if the knowledge is worth 4 years. It has just been stretched out to 4 years. So a lot of times why we can afford to have ASU strike and stuff like that, it's not because lecturers are not being paid. It's because there really isn't much to teach. There isn't much to teach in 4 years anymore. They're stretching it out. They're stretching it out. These things are available on the internet. You can learn it. If my daughter could learn it on Pinterest in a couple of hours, imagine what you can learn in 1 year. And you realize that most of the architects, I don't know how well you guys know about history of architecture or prominent architects from the past, but I'm very interested in prominent architects from the past. And you realize how many of them had architectural degree. How many of them had a degree in architecture? Frank Lloyd Wright never had a degree in architecture. Never. Had no degree in architecture. He dropped out from a course in, I think, civil engineering. After doing 1 year, he realized he knew enough and then went to go and do an apprenticeship, real life experience, and design some of the most impressive architecture in the world today. Some of his buildings, when you look at them, you don't know they are up to 100 years old. They still look more modern than things that people are designing today. A guy that had no degree in architecture. Louis Sullivan had no degree in architecture. Never. No degree. Did 1 year in a university, dropped out. Said, I've learned enough. I want to go and get my hands wet. Miles van der Rohe, father of high-rise buildings, no degree in architecture. The same thing, 1 year, dropped out. Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier did a lot of incredible architecture, What did he do? Studied, I think, art. You understand? But never had a degree in architecture. You understand? And there are so many of them. So these 4 years, the problem is a lot of you will not get to be architects based on the fact. A lot of you will study, a lot of you that study architecture will be architects simply based on the fact that you think of how much time you've committed. But what I want you to know is that education is not, the misconception we have about education is that we think education is for becoming something. So we use education as a means to become. And that is an abuse of education. So you are studying architecture because you want to become architects, and that's a very limited way of using the knowledge. Education it should not be used to become. Education should be used to understand. So it's a means of understanding something. So this rigidity of I studied this, so I must become this is very limiting. It's a limiting mentality. What you do is I studied this, so I know about this. And that helps me to know or to apply it to whatever I become. You understand? Because the truth of the matter is we are evolving as human beings, and some of you, your interest will change from time to time. Like I started out doing graphic design, and from there I started doing branding. From branding, I started doing mentoring. From mentoring, I started speaking. From speaking, I started writing. You understand? So we always evolve. But one thing I'll let you know is that no knowledge is ever wasted. As long as you don't use knowledge as a means of becoming, but rather as a means of understanding, you would always be able to apply your knowledge to every sphere of life. So the bubble of architecture as a means of designing spaces has burst. But the bubble of architecture as a way of thinking logically and solving problems can never burst. So even though I worked as an architect for 1 year, I still use my knowledge as an architect. Number one, to design. When I'm designing logos, someone once told me, I don't know how the person just just looked at my logos and just said, "Did you study architecture?" And I said, "Yes." "How do you know?" He said, "From looking at your logos, I can see. I can see from the balance, I can see from the symmetry, I can see from the shapes you are using, I can see from the strong lines that you have a knowledge of architecture." So that knowledge wasn't wasted. I still use my knowledge of architecture to present. Because when I was in Ife, we used to have presentations, we have jury. And that was my first time ever having to present something to people that people will critique. I used that when I was a logo designer, whenever I was presenting designs to my clients. And I still use it today when I go and speak to people, because when you have speaking engagement, it is still a way of presenting. Even as I'm talking to you now, my first experience of speaking was in that artist studio, speaking to lecturers. So I learned how to coordinate myself as a speaker. So you see, when you use a subject matter as a means of understanding different things and not a means of becoming, that subject matter will always be relevant in your life. So don't study architecture to become an architect. That's very constraining. Study architecture to learn about those peripheral things: presentation, patience. You understand? I learned patience from architecture because there was a time we had to render grass. And then I don't know whether you guys still do it. I hope not, you understand? But I hope you guys are using more software now. But then we used to use our pen and we'll use pointillism and we point the whole grass area. And that would take hours just doing that very mundane thing. But that has helped me today to do some very mundane things and not get bored. That came from architecture. You understand? So education is meant to build you as a human being, not to build you into a professional. What you're meant to be is be a better human being by being educated. But a lot of times we constrain it to being a better professional. But professions will come and go. And like I told you, that profession of architecture don't be surprised in a few years. It's not going to be as as demanded as it once was. The same thing with medicine. Medicine is not as demanded as it once was. That bubble has burst. The bubble of medicine has burst. Before, many years ago, if you had a headache, you go directly to the doctor. But then they discovered aspirin. One of the biggest problems of modern day medicine is modern day pharmaceuticals. That's their biggest problem. Because what happens is when there's a sickness and people go to the hospital, the pharmaceutical, big pharma, will develop something to bypass the hospital. So before, when you had a headache, you had to go to the doctor. Then they developed something called aspirins. And now aspirins could now be dispensed to you without a doctor. So you can buy Panadol. You can buy all those things. Now you don't need a doctor anymore to go to the hospital. So when you have a headache, that has cut down the influence of the doctor. And there are so many other things that have changed in our lives that we are not getting as sick as we used to before. Just by the fact that life has improved. We don't have those things anymore. Some diseases have been eradicated. You understand? So that bubble of medicine has burst. There are some things you don't go to, just go Google and you go to WebMD, and WebMD will tell you what you have to do. There's alternative medicine now. You understand? Those things are killing the influence of modern or of all those established careers, and architecture is part of it. So I really, really hope that when you do graduate, you understand that 50 of you or whatever amount you are in your class, you don't restrict yourself to a career. When I graduated from architecture in 2022, why I didn't and why I didn't go ahead to be an architect or work as an architect was because I had a series of emotions. One of the emotions I had was lack of confidence. I didn't have confidence as an architect. And a lot of you are going to leave school and you're going to be less confident about this subject matter that they have told you you are now a professional in. And why you're going to be less confident is because the university system is very theoretical, and architecture is very practical. That's a big problem. So when you go out, you will see some things for the first time that you should have been seeing every day in school, and some of you will be intimidated, and because of that, you wouldn't practice architecture anymore because it's going to be way too intimidating for you. The polytechnic system is much better than the university system in this aspect. Where the polytechnic system even allows for practicality, but the university system is highly theoretical. So you have a lot of head knowledge, but not a lot of world knowledge, not practical, real knowledge, not a lot of application knowledge. So when I finished, I realized that I remember when I was 7, they told me to go to a site, and I was meant to supervise that site. I was the only architect on that site, and that was the first place that humbled me. I realized how very little I actually knew in the real world. And then what happened was that um, the head mason, you understand, the head mason on the site became my boss because he was correcting a lot of the things. He was the one putting me through. You understand? And this guy was someone that didn't even finish secondary school, but he was the one telling me about the height of the rafters. He was the one telling me about the mix of the concrete. He was the one educating me on this thing. And that was the first time I knew I didn't have any knowledge, real life knowledge. And I felt so insecure. So some of you, the problem would be that you would realize that you have no real life knowledge in architecture. And that would just not help you to stay. It's not going to help you to stay because you wouldn't feel confident. You wouldn't feel confident charging people. You wouldn't feel confident taking control of a site. You understand? They are going to be intimidated. And I see it so much in when I visit sites now. A lot of the people on the site, they hate the architect. They hate the architect. Why? Because the architect has book knowledge. It really doesn't know. He really doesn't know what he's saying. A lot of times doesn't know what he's saying. But yet he wants to boss people around. So a lot of people hate the architect. They want to bypass him. So they always tell the client, you don't need architect for this thing. Plan. We will draft that plan for you. We will draft it, and they will draft the plan. They will draft it. Those draftsmen will do it. You understand? So some of you, that will be the problem. And for another set of you, what will also happen, what happened to me again, was you realize that you had no real interest in architecture in the first place. And not just for architecture students, a lot of you that are in university, when you graduate from university, you realize that you have no real interest in the subject matter you have chosen. And that's very important for people to realize very early on. I realized this when I left university, that I wasn't interested in architecture. I realized I wasn't really interested in it. For some of you, that will happen because there will be a pause in your life. And for me, the pause in my life was when I was meant to be posted for NYSC and my name didn't get sent. And I had to stay at home for 1 year. And that 1 year, I spent that 1 year thinking about what I was doing with my life and whether I really enjoyed this thing I was doing. And I was honest with myself that I didn't enjoy architecture. And I didn't want to do it with the rest of my life. And I asked myself, what do I really want to do? I said, I want to do something freer, something that allows me to use colors more, something that allows me to use texts and typography, something that allows me, to use shapes more and stuff like that, something that is less, that I can play with more. Architecture was too serious. You understand? It was too serious. It's a serious subject matter. And I wanted something that was more playful. And that's how I reconnected with art and I found graphic design. For some of you, you will not be architects by virtue of the fact that you will find yourself and you realize that architecture as an occupation is not for you. And I say this as an occupation, not as a knowledge. As a knowledge, it's always helpful. But as an occupation, some of you will find out is not for you. Some of you will diverse into fashion. I saw a lady today on Instagram. My wife was showing me a lady on Instagram doing incredible stuff with crochet. You know what crochet is? Knitting stuff with wool. Incredible stuff she's doing with crochet, making bags and things like that and scarves. And young lady has over 600,000 followers. Got sponsorship from Sterling Bank, was flown to the US to exhibit her stuff. Architecture graduate doing crochet. The knowledge is still, I can guarantee you, she's still using that knowledge in architecture, but she's not doing it as a profession. Some of you will find yourself doing odd things like that. In quote, odd things. Some of you will find yourself in illustration. You understand? Doing drawings and illustrating and doing comics and whatever it is. Don't think it's a waste. Because I said architecture as a subject matter for a profession is not going to be as lucrative anymore. It's not. So embrace it when you're able to apply it to other fields. And how do you apply it? As I said, it affects the way you think, how you solve problems, how you order things. So don't feel too bad if you are doing your studio and you're not getting an A. Some of you put too much emphasis on this. I got A in studio. Some of you are not meant to get A in studio because you're not meant to. Your application of architecture is not going to be studio-like. Don't worry. The knowledge is still going to come to play. All those A, B, C, all those alphabets that we let rule our lives. When you leave school, you realize that those alphabets don't make as much meaning as you think they do. Don't let those alphabets destroy your life. Those alphabets are number 2.0, 4.0, 4.5 GPA. All those things. No, those things, they're only, they're like monopoly money. In today's world, they're like monopoly money. Monopoly money is only important on the board of monopoly. Once you close that board of monopoly, that money is just paper. The same thing with all these A, B, C, and 2.5 and 3.2 GPA. You understand? They're like monopoly money. In the actual world of today, those things do not tender. They don't tender anymore. You understand? So what you need to do is find yourself. I found myself in design, and it has taken me to places I never thought I could go. It has put me in front of people that I never thought I would be in front of. It has helped me to have the confidence that I never ever had. You know, the other day I went, this time last week, I went for a speaking engagement. And when after the speaking engagement, I was surprised with how many people came to me telling me some one way or the other, I had affected their lives, I had changed their lives, I had made their lives better, I had helped them to earn money, I've helped them to find their passion. And it was kind of overwhelming for me because I never thought doing this very simple thing that was true to who I was could help me find so much relevance in people's lives. So what I'm going to say to you guys before I think we go to the questions, because I won't spend too much time on this, is um, it's going to be a total waste if every architecture student became an architect. It's going to be very wasteful. It's going to be very sad. I don't think that is the purpose of education, to become something. I think the purpose of education is to enlighten, is to illuminate the mind, and so that you can become yourself. You understand? It's more important to become yourself. Like me right now, I consider myself a lot of things, but I don't think I don't constrain myself to one thing. So when I introduced myself, I told you guys I'm a teacher, I'm a creative. I don't even like to call myself a graphic designer because I think I'm way more than that. All this knowledge I have has allowed me to become a richer person, not a richer professional, but a richer person. Strive less to be a professional. Try to be a person. So I don't think what's more important is not every architecture student becoming an architect. I think what's more important is every architecture student becoming a fulfilled person, whether doing architecture or not. That's what's most important. Your fulfillment. Some of you will go into music. Your knowledge of architecture will help you. You see, education is it's an incredible thing that we are using in a terrible way. Um, you see, like I've forgotten this conversation I was having with someone, but the person was like, the person didn't study this, so I can't work with them. And I said, that doesn't matter what the person studied. Did the person go to school? Yes. Look, immediately someone tells me they go to school, what that tells me is that this person knows how to think. I don't care what they study. Whether I study Yoruba or stuff. Going to school, the aim of going to school is to teach you to think, to be rational, to be logical. Do you understand? Very important. The subject matter doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that ability to solve problems. To solve problems. Doesn't matter what any other thing you know whatever is written on your certificate when you leave, or whether you even leave with a certificate or not. And that's why you know, for some of you that know about Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs went to school and it was too rigid for him and he dropped out. But when he dropped out, he didn't leave school. He didn't leave school. He stayed in school and was choosing his subjects himself. So he went to typography class, which he wasn't registered for. But he just attend the class and be watching. Didn't do exam with them, didn't just listen to the lectures. And those were the things he used in Apple. All those things he learned by free will. So he just chose his class. He chose his classes. Chose psychology. Chose typography. Chose the ones that he thought were interesting and left the rest. That's what education should be like. Do you understand? At that point, he hardly even knew what he was going to be in future. But he just knew that I have an interest in this, I have an interest in this. By the time I combine it, it will help me become a better me. So I think in closing, No, not every architectural student would become an architect. By God's grace, no. You understand? I don't think so. Some of you would go into more interesting fields, more lucrative fields, more relevant fields, more groundbreaking fields. Some of you will start fields. You understand? Some of you will start fields based on your ability to think um, like an educated person. And it for me, that's the hope, and that's the hope you should have. So by all means, don't get distracted by, or don't get destroyed by what is going on in school. I personally hope Obafemi Awolowo University has changed. When I was in school, it was highly oppressive environment. It was a highly oppressive, and I'll be honest with you, I say this everywhere because it's the truth. It was highly oppressive. Um, Highly oppressive. And I really, really hope that they don't take pride in being an oppressive environment anymore. I hope it's somewhat becoming a learning environment where people can find themselves, and people can be less burdened and less intimidated by people in academics. And I hope it's a place where lecturers have learned to close the gap between themselves and students. You understand? I hope it's more interactive between lecturers and students. I hope it's more collaborative. I hope it's a more open-minded environment. If it isn't, it's very sad. It's very sad, but I do hope it is. But yeah, I guess that's what I have to say. I don't know if anyone has any question based on what I've said so far.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your inspiring journey and valuable insights. We are deeply appreciative. We will now move on to the Q&A session. I have a few questions to start us off, and then we will open the floor to questions from our attendees. For my first question, sir, you mentioned earlier that most of us architecture students become architects because we often view it from how long it took us to learn them. Now, my question to you, sir, is for those of us who aren't sure what to expect or too scared maybe to switch career paths, what challenges can you share with us, sir, that could act as a guide when shifting industries, and how did you overcome them?
All right. What challenges can I share that would help that I faced when shifting industries? I think a big challenge that a lot of you need to overcome is society. And when I mean society, I don't mean Nigeria at large. I mean your personal society. That society is more important than your Nigeria at large. And what's your personal society? The people around you, starting with your parents. Your parents. Um, that was one of my biggest challenges. My parents going to school and coming out of school. I think I always had a battle with my parents. Um, a lot of us. The problem is that a lot of us, when we go into university, we are not clear about life, and we now enter a society that somewhat defines our life, and that's a very dangerous thing for someone who is not clear about life. A lot of us enter university from secondary school, which I think is a big mistake. I think is a big mistake. Um, Going directly to university is a big mistake. I think after secondary school, there should be a mandatory 2 year period that everyone should have to find themselves. 2 years, 2 good years that people should have to learn something, to travel, to be at home and just be bored, to watch TV. You understand? To make friends, to find themselves. That doesn't happen. People just go straight from SS2, SS3 at 16, 15, 17, 18 and going to university. People are going as babies into university. And so they go based on the pressure of their parents. And so you're still doing a lot to impress your parents. You passed your jam to impress your parents. You passed your WAEC to impress your parents. You chose your university a lot of times to impress your parents because it was their choice. You chose your career to impress your parents. And so when you finish university and you've been away from your parents for a while, especially for those of you that are studying in universities that are far away from home, you begin to lose that some of that dependence on your parents. And some of you begin to say, "Oh, I don't really want to do this thing anymore." But when you graduate, you are thrown right back to these people that still have a stranglehold on you, and so they still try to dictate. And one thing you must know, I'm a parent now, so I've learned that what it can be very addicting directing your children. It's an addiction that parents find very hard to break. It's most of the time only for the very open-minded parents that addiction has to be broken by force, by fight. It has to be broken. There's no nice way of breaking that addiction because your parents are addicted to directing you. I'm a parent now, so I know how addicting it can be to tell the person, go and sit down. No, you're not going to this place. No, you're not doing that. No, I'll not have you do that. No, I'm your dad. No, I know how it is now. And I tell myself, Tola, you need to break this addiction. You understand? You need to break this addiction. So there's an addiction they have to telling you what you ought to do and how you want to do it and what is best for your life. One of the biggest challenges in switching careers from something your parents spent money for you to do, because that way I talk about that, they spent money 4 years, they bought your drawing materials, they paid money and stuff like that, they pay for your accommodation, give you pocket money, so they're like, okay, you now become their first staff because they've invested so much in you. You must not let that work on you. Do you understand? That's going to be the biggest career challenge barrier a lot of you are going to have, is saying no to that guy or that woman that sponsored you. It takes a lot of courage, but a lot of you will need to do it. Saying, you sponsored me, oh, thank you, oh, but I'm not doing this thing. It takes a lot of courage. But until you have that courage, you'll never find yourself. And you never do what you want to do in your life. Because your parents can come, they can direct you till you're 60 years old. Don't let it shock you. That's how addicting it is. Until you break that stranglehold. And I had to have a lot of back and forth with my parents about, I don't do architecture anymore. I want to do graphic design. I say I want to do graphic design. You understand? We had that back and forth. Although my parents, with all credit to them, they are not very forceful people, and I'm glad about that. They never threatened. They disown you. You won't do this. No, no, no. They never did that. They took time to listen, but then there's always the pressure. Are you sure this thing can work? Are you sure this thing can make you money? Are you sure your mates are doing this now? They are buying this now. They are doing this. Are you sure this thing can feed your family? Are you sure it will send your children to school? But all those things are doing it now. You understand? But then it was a battle. It was a battle to say, thank you for sponsoring this. I got some knowledge, but I don't want to be that professional. You understand? I don't want to be that professional. I want to be this person. So the biggest challenge a lot of you would have is being able to speak to your parents and tell them what you don't want for your life. And once you do that will be the big. Once you can surmount your society, and I said I don't mean your extended, I mean your immediate society. Your uncle, there are some uncles that are worse than you. They are more dictatorial than your parents. You wonder whether they're the ones that give birth to you. I said, no, 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 no. I don't mean you, no, no. You have to go back and do that architecture. But you're not his child. You understand? Once you can face that immediate society of that opinionated, demanded parent, uncle, relative, older brother that wants to tell you what to do with your life. No, no, no. Every other thing is not hard. Every other thing is not hard. It's that immediate society. That's the biggest problem. So for me, that's how I answer the question. Is that being able to be honest with your parents and not allow anyone blackmail you or guilt trip you because of a sponsorship. You understand? Don't allow that happen.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure we've all taken note of that. For my next question, it goes thus. For those of us still in architecture school or who design in general, we sometimes encounter creative blocks when designing for studio. Sometimes so much that some of us even start our studio work days to submission, and I am probably an example of that. My question is, how do we overcome the creative challenges that often come with the design and creative process so that it doesn't take us to the extent of believing that perhaps we aren't cut out for the field that we have decided to develop an interest in?
All right, that's a good question. Creative block while in school studying architecture. The problem is the school is built like a prison, and no creativity happens in prison. The school should not be built like a prison. Um, the school should be built like an amusement park, not a prison. So the problem is, for a course like architecture, you should not be cooked up in Ife campus where you do not see new architecture every day. And that's why a lot of you have blocks, creative blocks. Creative blocks comes from not enough information sometimes. So you can't look around you and be inspired every single day and say, wow, look at what I just saw. Hmm, I'm going to try to use that in my next project. Oh, look at this door I just saw. Oh, look at this window. Oh, look at this space. That's going to go into my next plan. I'm not going to snap that on my phone. Can you walk around campus? Architecture, you should be able to walk around campus with your phone, and your phone should be full of inspiration. But then you're stuck in Ife campus now. How much can you see and re-see? How many of the buildings are inspirational in that Ife? How many are inspirational? The most inspirational buildings in Ife are the older ones. You understand? And how many times can you see it and gain inspiration from it? So it's very little wonder you're having brain block because the brain is not seeing much. And this affects every career. When I was working as a designer, I studied in Canada for my postgraduate when I wanted to really learn design. And inspiration was too much. Just go out like this, just on the bus, you're looking out, you're seeing billboards, you're seeing advertisement. Every single thing is just a bombardment of inspiration. The thing is that at a point, you're even saturated. Everything, the colors, the text, the copy, everything, the photography. And you can't have brain block now. You cannot have brain block. You cannot have creative block. You cannot. You understand? Because there's so much of a reservoir of things you are excited to use for your next project. So it's not your fault. It's the fault of the fact that you are not seeing the outside world and you are told to imagine something new. But the mind can only imagine what it has seen. It can only build what it has seen. What it doesn't know, the mind cannot conceive. The mind cannot conceive what it doesn't know. It can't. So exposure is what a lot of you need. I don't think architecture students should be in school so much. You understand? You guys should go out more on field trips, travel. That's what it should be. Architecture, some departments, if you don't have money to set them up, don't set them up. Architecture should be a place whereby the school can say, okay, we are saying these guys, people, they are traveling to Germany. These Batus, all of them traveling to Germany. And we'll find a way of funding it. Where you guys just pay a small amount to if you have to. You guys travel to. Do you think if you guys travel to Germany for 2 weeks and come back, you think anybody will come with creative block? Nobody will have creative block now. You understand? These guys are traveling to Amsterdam. These guys are traveling to China. These guys are traveling to Kenya. You understand? That's what makes architecture has to be that rich. It has to be that rich. But you guys are in this. It's like a prison. You're in school. You understand? So how can you dream? You can't dream. You understand? So what I would say is that what you have to do for yourself, which is now what you have that we didn't have, is this incredible thing called the mobile phone. And this is where, for you as an architecture student, And this is what separates those people that are meant to be architects and those people that are just doing it for mommy and daddy. What you use your phone for. A lot of people use their phone to check skits and see what people are doing and trends and stuff like that. No, no, no. I believe with this your phone, you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have Google, you have Pinterest. Subscribe, as in follow someone that puts inspirational stuff every single day. We even have AI now, as in just follow an AI page that just shows you AI architecture every single day and go there 15 minutes a day before you sleep. Just look at it. You see, you start doing things that your lecturers cannot imagine. You understand what I'm saying? So if you can't go physically, go digitally. Don't waste this phone that you have, that data that you have. Don't just be using it to be chatting. You understand? Don't just be used to be chatting and doing things that don't really matter. Use it to get inspiration. Use it to go to the US. Even if you can't travel on a plane, travel with your data. You understand? Go to the US, go to New York, see what's going on. You understand? Get inspiration. And that is where that's how you can really get to overcome this thing called creative block. I don't think in today's world you shouldn't have creative block. The problem is that people only start thinking when a project comes. So when they're giving your class project, that's when you start looking for inspiration. By that time, it's too late. If you really love architecture, you are looking for inspiration every single time. So when the project comes, you are just looking for a container in which to use the inspiration you have already. But the problem is when the lecturer now says, this is the project for the term, you now start groping for inspiration. It's already too late then because now there's pressure of time and delivery. Do you understand? So that's how I think you can overcome creative block.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Um, a bit of a more personal question here for my next question before I open the floor to our fellow attendees. Part of your outstanding achievements is your ProUp Masterclass YouTube channel and podcast. By using that channel as a means to share from your wealth of knowledge, you have continued to make an impact in so many young lives, including mine. Could you share any success story from your YouTube channel and podcast to enlighten and inspire all of us listening in, sir?
Um, Success story from my YouTube channel. Well, I have quite a, the problem is what the definition of success is. Like I said, last week I was somewhere and a lot of people were telling me they listened to my podcast and stuff and how it has really helped them, how it has really shaped their lives and sharpened their lives. Um, for me, that was ultimate success for me, just knowing that I'm able to help a younger generation. Um, for me, that's incredible success. Um, and so, just the opportunity to have an outlet where you can speak your thoughts and share your vulnerability. Very important. For me, I feel why people can relate to my podcast is because I'm not a pretentious person. Um, because I truly believe that um, a lot of people in my generation have failed and are failing the people in your generation. So you have a lot of people that are 40-year-olds and above who are consistently failing the 20-year-olds of today. And how have we failed them? Because we've not told them the absolute truth of our lives. All we've done is that we've shown our cars, our houses, our trips abroad, our clothes, we've shown you guys something that is a false narrative. And I say false narrative not because these things do not exist, but the fact that there are other things that exist around these things, and there are other things that existed before these things that we don't talk about. So we don't talk about our failures, we don't talk about our struggles, we don't talk about when we were hungry, we don't talk about our disappointments, we don't talk about our losses, and we need to be more comfortable talking about stuff like that. So for me, one of the main successes of my podcast is that someone can reach out to me and say, "Thank you for letting me know this," and it just makes me not feel as bad as I feel about myself. The fact that I know that you were once confused, I know that you've been broke, and you still go through being broke. You still struggle with the emotions that I struggle with. Just that, just being able to just say what's what's on your mind and be honest is very therapeutic for me. Just being able to be honest with myself and be honest with you guys. Um, for me, that's success. I, I'm 43 years old. There are not a lot of 43-year-olds out there. Not too many of my colleagues out there that whenever I go out with my kids, the other day I went out with my kids and somebody came and he shook me. He was like, "Ah, thank you very much, a young guy." And my kids were like, "Ah," they told my wife, "Oh, that one of daddy's fans just came to see him." And for my kids to see that I'm being able to affect people's lives is, for me, is a reward. You understand? It makes them know that me as their dad, I did something that mattered, and not just to me, that mattered to others. And that's a good precedent to lay for your children. So as I was saying that, I don't know that too many people. The other day I was out in a place and I was, having coffee with some of my some of my friends. And one guy, young guy, stood up and came and shook my hand and said he listens to my podcast. And he asked one of my friends to take a photo of me and him. And when he went back to his seat, my friend, Tola, how far now? What happened now? Well, why these guys know you like that now and stuff like that? And you see, a lot of my mates have not had the opportunity to share their story. And unfortunately, when some of them die, they will die with their stories, they will die with their values. And all they would have is maybe a moment of silence from their workplace before their workplace replaces them with somebody else. Um, I have that guarantee in my heart that whenever I go, I will not go with a flicker. You understand? I have left something behind for people to remember me by. So when you can leave something that people can remember you by, you leave a voice. You never really die. You understand? For me, that's one of the blessings and one of the successes of being able to do my podcast and being able to talk to younger people.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for answering those questions with so much elegance and flair. Now I'll be opening the floor for a more interactive discussion. To my fellow attendees, feel free to share your thoughts and ask more questions. Raise your hand and you will be called on the stage to speak. Also, I feel I should add, if you are in an uncomfortable position to speak, please feel free to drop your questions in the space chat and we will be reading them to our guest for you. Now, the format for asking questions goes thus. First, your name. Next, your course of study if you're a student, your school of study, then lastly, your question. Thank you. Please raise your hand and you'll be called on the stage to speak if you have any questions.
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on, John.
Yeah. My name is John Elishion. I am an architecture student at OAU. I have a question on. First of all, thank you very much, sir, for your session. Thank you for all you shared. I have a question about personal branding on social media for architecture students who are involved in or people who are exploring other areas of creativity or art or design. What's the best way we should present ourselves on social media in a way that won't be confusing for the audience on what you are known for? So, like, are you to share? Is it best to share every part of what you are doing, or you just focus on um your other skill that you're exploring, or you try and present both? What's the best? Because it's something that I think I've heard somewhere that it's good to be um, consistent with being known for something. So I'm wondering what's the best thing to do about that. The best way to present yourself on social media for someone who is exploring different areas of both architecture and then this, exploring other areas of creativity or design.
All right, John. That's a good question. This question of personal branding. I think the thing with this personal branding that people don't get is that personal branding is very different from corporate branding. And a lot of times when I see people do personal branding, they're still branding themselves like corporate entities. I know corporate entities have mission, vision, they have a style guide, they have a language, they have a persona. A personal brand is much different from that. A personal brand is your person, and I encourage people to share, to be honest. You understand? Be honest. Be you. Bring as much as possible to the fore. Don't think about how you want to be seen. You understand? Just present how you see the world. Don't think about how you want people to see you. Be more conscious about presenting what you see. You understand? And how you see it. And leave that how people see you to them. And when you can do that, you realize incredible, beautiful things that you never expected will begin to happen. There was a lady that was on the panel with me last week, and she gave her story. She's also an architect, and she was talking about going to Germany for her work. And while she was there, she saw a what do you call it? Um, Someone showed her the photo of um, a hospital in Berlin, and she looked at it and went, wow, this hospital is so beautiful that this looks like a 3D image. And the person that showed it to her said, wow, that's interesting. That the owner of the hospital will be glad to hear that his hospital looks so nice that it almost looks unreal. And he said, when next I see him, I will tell him that someone said that. So a few days later, she got a call, and the guy told her, the owner of that hospital said he wants to see you. And she was like, why? But like, he just said he wants to have a meeting with you based on your comments. So she went to meet with him. And when she met with him, he asked her, what do you do? And this man is a big businessman. For someone to build a hospital, he's a big businessman, billionaire. And she told him, she thought to herself, what should I tell this man? I have to tell this man that's a billionaire. I have to tell him something that sounds serious, something that sounds professional. So she told him, I'm an architect, stuff like that. I work with in academics and stuff like that. I work with a lot of architectural professors and stuff like that. And he asked her, what else do you do? And she said, no, nothing, nothing really. And then he asked her, why didn't she tell him that she makes videos on Facebook talking about subject matters of life and inspiring young people? And she thought, how did he know that? And she said that before she came, the man had Googled her and saw her Facebook page, saw her name, and was able to go through her Facebook account and saw what she was putting up, and said she was used to making short videos, just inspiring people about life, about work, about stuff, not giving up and stuff. Nothing professional. I said for these videos, she used to get 10 views, 7 views, 9 views. And that man said that very thing that she's doing, those videos, those are the things that interest him the most. And that is what he wants to sponsor. Not her architecture. He said he missed so many architects, so many that serious part of her. He knows so many people that do it and can do it better. But that little thing that she's thought as insignificant, that she just puts out there on her social media, is what the guy said he will sponsor. And that's what the guy has been sponsoring till today. Do you understand? He has been now she has an international sponsor for what she does, for her speaking and her talking. You see, that's the beauty of a personal brand. The ability to show it all, even the things that you feel are not brand aligned. You will be surprised that those are the things that will create a way for you. I can't tell you how many times that the fact that I've put it out there that I support Manchester United has helped me get a client. That Manchester, I will never forget. There was a day someone said he wanted to see me, and I was out and I was wearing a Manchester United jersey, and I said, man, can I go to this guy's office in this jersey? Let me go and change. But then the guy said he was going out, so I just went there. And as I went there, said, are you a Man U fan? I said, yeah. I never knew now. And we're here talking about, arguing about price. Man U fan, come on, let's do this thing. Let's make it happen. That was all. The guy didn't check anything again. And from then on, when we meet, half the time is Manchester United we are talking about. Where I stayed in Canada, the fact that I was a Manchester United fan was what made the people I was working with more open to me. Up to the fact that when I finished school, they found a job for me because me and the man, we clicked so much. It was like, I've been in Canada, I've not met any Manchester United fan like that. For me to meet you. So you see, some of those brand aligned things are not the things that all those things that you want to show. I am doing this. You want them to know you for one thing. You are limiting yourself. Nobody should know you for one thing. Is that seventh thing on your list that will really blow your mind? What it will do for you? That seventh thing. So when you order the things on your list, you're an architect, you're a designer, you're a this, but then you like to make shoes on weekend. Is that liking to make shoes on weekend that will do really amazing things? But just put it out there. You understand that what personal brand is? So don't ever just be confined to just showing one aspect of yourself. That makes you a corporate brand. Do you understand? Like it's just like with Coca-Cola now, they can't be showing, other things outside of that beverage. But you see, as a human being, there are so many aspects to you that you should show, and you'll be surprised how those things now become more than you think. Those things can really, really open doors for you in the future.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Um, I to repeat myself once again, the formats for asking questions are your name first, then your course of study if you're a student, then your school of study, then lastly your question. And like I said, if you are in an uncomfortable position or you are in a very noisy place to speak, please feel free to drop your questions in the space chat and we will be reading them to our guests for you. Thank you. Okay. While some people may be still be thinking about their questions, I would like to ask another one, if that's okay with you, sir. Sir, you once said that having a keen interest in technology, spirituality, and design is a potential cocktail for intellectual stimulation. Technology will keep you learning, spirituality will keep you humble, design will keep you expressive. How inspirational and motivational and novel that really felt for me. Times are changing, and so is the culture that evolves with it. How can we, as architecture students or designers or any other professionals in this audience, start preparing for careers outside our professional fields while still in school?
All right. I think one thing you need to do is as I hope this doesn't sound confusing, but I'll try to explain it as much as possible. I think we need to stop preparing for careers and start preparing for life in itself. That I'm preparing for a career. You see, I think we need to stop preparing for careers because I have a lot of views about this thing called work that we do. Um, and a lot of us struggle through work when work should actually be a pleasure to do. Um, Stop preparing for careers. Start prepare for life. Um, and what I mean is, with that tweet that you read, I think I put that tweet up maybe about 2 years ago. I can't remember, but then it's what I was saying was just that with technology, a lot of people just feel when they see technology, what they think about it is, does it apply to me as an architect or as a doctor? Is it for, you know, is it for these people or is it for me? But what we must know about technology is to enjoy technology, you must always see it as being made for you. And so don't wait till it applies to your field before it piques your interest. You understand? Don't wait till it applies to your field before it piques your interest. The fact that it has been put out there in the world, investigate it to an extent. Investigate it. And that's why right now, for people that follow me, you realize that I do a lot of AI work. Why am I doing AI? I hardly work for commission as a graphic designer anymore. I don't do graphic design as a commission. I speak, I teach. So why am I doing AI? Why do I spend I do AI every single day. Every single day I create an AI design with a message on it every single day. Why? It's not towards a career. It's just that there's this thing that has been put out in life while I am alive. My grandfather didn't have this before he died. This AI. So I have it while I am alive. Why won't I use it? Do you understand? If I don't use it, then I might as well have died when my grandfather died. So I'm not making use of the privilege that I have just because it's not career aligned. By all means, all these things they don't really foster my speaking. So I can say, why am I using AI? I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor. Why am I using AI to be doing? But because I just realized it's an incredible, faster way of designing. Why won't I play with it? So I use it as play right now. And the interesting thing about it, I'll tell you, this is why when you prepare for life, a career will begin to call you. So a lot of times we go after careers when careers should chase us. We go after work when work should call us. You understand? So this AI thing, I'll tell you what it has done for me in two ways. When I started using AI, my wife was one that introduced me to AI. By that time, I stopped doing design for commission. I don't do design. I don't do design for clients anymore. So he just told me, there's this new AI called Bing. I've been using to do stuff. I said, Bing? That day I investigated it, started using it, prompting, creating stuff with it. Immediately started creating. And since that day, I was creating every single day. And I'm the kind of person that when I create something and I like it, if I like it, I feel it's my responsibility to share it. You understand? If I create anything that I like and that I'm proud of, I must share it. So I started sharing on my WhatsApp status. And at first, I wasn't getting any reply, any feedback at all, because people like to pigeonhole you. People like to put you in a container. You're an architect, so they want to see architectural stuff from you. You are a designer, they want to see design stuff. You're a doctor, they want to see medical stuff from you. So when you start putting things out there that are not brand aligned, they will not comment. Do you understand? Because it throws them off. So when I started putting AI stuff, they're not commenting. They're like, man, give us quotes now, give us quotes, give us live quotes. But then I was still putting it out there. So you must never go by what people are saying. Just continue to do what you enjoy doing. And all of a sudden, someone called me and said, I've been seeing this AI stuff you've been doing, really interesting stuff. Oh. And I will have you know, a lot of the AI stuff I was doing then were just photos of animals and, animals basically doing ridiculous things, wearing sunshades, wearing caps, that kind of thing, just imaginative things. And personally, I've been seeing really interesting stuff. I think you can help us develop a campaign for our organization. Now, this organization is a government organization. They work with advertising agencies. They were actually breaking the ranks to work with me because what they were seeing me doing was different from what the advertising agencies were doing. They were like, man, this is interesting stuff. Oh. This guy can help us do this campaign. So they told me to do a couple of samples. So I did it and I showed them, like, this is exactly what we need. And they commissioned me to do, like, I think about 15 or 16 AI images for them. You see, I didn't learn AI to be a career AI designer. I learned AI because it was now part of my life. So I was interested in it as an aspect of life, not as an aspect of my career. And it gave me one of the biggest jobs I've had, best paying job I've had this year. Now, like if that was not enough, I kept on doing this thing. And then someone else called me. And he works with, very, very big institution in Nigeria and said, I've been seeing you've been doing this thing. Oh. Can you come and talk to us in our organization about how to adopt new technology like AI in production? You see, when you stop doing things for career, the career will start to come to you. When you stop doing things for work, people will see it and then they will come to you with the work. But a lot of times we have I want to use this thing as a work and stuff like that. No. Live life. Take all the opportunities that life gives to you, and then life will reward you by bringing opportunities that will pay you. You understand? So stop learning things because they are career aligned. Learn things because they are life aligned, because life presents them to you now. You understand? Present them to you now. So investigate things as much as possible. Investigate technology. Investigate, I like to talk about life, spirituality, design. You see, those three things, you don't do it with a means to an end. You do it because they are part of life. You understand? The same thing for me with spirituality. I do not read my Bible because I want to go to heaven. Go to heaven is, that's still way down the line. I read my Bible because it helps me to make the best decisions in my life now. Going to heaven is too far a project. You understand? What of the decision I need to make now that is not heaven? You understand? So that's the same way. You cannot use everything as a means to an end to pay yourself. You understand? You use it as a means of expressing yourself as a human being. So you are first a person before a professional. Always have that in your mind. Person before professional. In the end, that's what will matter. Your person. And you'll be surprised the kind of jobs they will bring to your person. You will always retire as a professional, but you don't retire as a person. You understand? As long as you're a person, you can always bring value to people, whether you're 80 or so. So I am not afraid of what I'll be doing when I'm 80. I'm not. Because I know at 80, I will have one kind of value that people will still need. You understand what I'm saying? So don't try to be a professional. Just try to be the best of who you are, and you realize how that will attract work to you in the long run.
Thank you very much, sir, for your rich response. I think there's one of us who actually has a question. I'm not sure if he's still on the stage. Adeleke Paul, are you there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
you're audible. Go on.
Good evening, sir. I'm Paul Adedeke, OAU. I graduated last year. So I wanted to, I think I've started listening to your podcast by recommendation about 2 months ago, and I think it has helped me be comfortable and confident in the steps I'm taking. So I wanted to ask, and it's a great opportunity for me to like be on the live call with you. I wanted to ask what your postgraduate what was your postgraduate experience like transitioning from architecture to a more a would I say a more fluid field? So how was the experience in terms of the decision making that you had to do and the applying the knowledge of architecture in the field, and what?
Oh, I don't think I can hear Paul anymore.
Yeah, I think he's having network issues, sir. I don't know if we should
All right.
give him a little bit more time to get back.
Hey, Jesus.
Okay. All right. All right. I think I heard most of his
Sorry,
question.
am I
Okay, you're
audible?
audible now, Paul. Complete your question.
Uh,
All right. So I think I got the gist of Paul's question to even start with. He was asking what the experience was like doing a postgraduate course that was not architecture, and how was I able to use the knowledge of architecture to blend into the postgraduate course I did. Now, the postgraduate course I did was called Computer Interactive Multimedia. So what we were taught was how to use design for new media, because then all this motion design that was new media then, it was new then, so they called it new media. And well, to start with, I always tell people it was the best schooling experience of my entire life. The best schooling experience I've ever had in my life. Um, it was like night and day compared to how things were in OAU, because it was highly interactive with the lecturers, very collaborative. There was no tension. They were interested in learning. They were interested in us passing and doing well. So when we had tests, they would tell us what would come out in the test so that we could go and study and pass the test. I was never used to that. I was always used to playing hide and seek with lecturers. You understand? I was used to them diverting us from what will come out so that we could have a hard time. So, but I saw these people were more interested in our development, were more interested in our learning. There was humility where they could sit down and learn from us. I said, "That's pretty interesting. Can you tell me how you did that?" That never happened in Ife, where lecturers were asking you, the student, how you did particular things. So it was an incredible experience, and it wasn't like schooling for me. It was like play. I looked forward. In fact, on days like this, when I was in, I would just be kind of sad and just looking forward to Monday. Let's go to school now. Let's go to school. Never happened in my life. But school was that enjoyable, because number one, I was learning something I was interested in. Number two, I was learning from people that were interested in my progress and my success. Those things were very important. Which was kind of different from architecture. When I was learning architecture, I wasn't really learning something I was interested in. In fact, how did I choose architecture as a course? It happened in secondary school when in secondary school, I was an average student, never was best in my class, never top 10 or anything. But then I did one exam, technical drawing exam, and there was a part in the exam that was freehand drawing. Freehand drawing. And this freehand drawing is something I've been doing for years. I've always been an artist. So because freehand drawing seriously, the teacher decided to allocate so many marks to that aspect of the exam. And so I think it carried like 40 marks, just that freehand drawing part of the exam, and the other part of it carried like 20. And by the time we did the exam, because I was so good in freehand drawing, I had the highest in the class. And that the teacher had to call me to say, how did you do this thing? And I drew in front of him, and he just gave me the marks. And for the first time, I was the highest in the class. So I wanted, this thing, all I was telling you about, at a particular age, all you want to do is make your parents proud. I was so proud of myself. I wanted my parents to be proud. So I took that exam sheet where I had 60 over 70, highest I've ever had in school. And I showed it to my mom. And my mom was like, wow, this is incredible. Are you sure you won't study? That's the first time architecture came to my mind. And I said, okay, if I'm having 60 over 70, and this freehand drawing is something they do, this technical drawing, they say that's what architecture is about, then let me go and study it. And that's how I went to go and study architecture. But to my surprise, architecture is more than freehand drawing. And so I was very surprised I had a rude shock by what architecture was. So when we're doing building technology, we're doing all this, I'm like, hi, this is not what I signed up for. But that's how I found architecture. So it wasn't from a real interest in architecture. And so architecture wasn't like a good experience for me, because number one, I was studying something I didn't have a real interest in, just something recommended by my mom. And number two, I was being taught by people who didn't really appear to have a real interest in my success. And that made it frustrating. And that was the polar opposite in Canada, where I was studying. And that's why even when I teach through my podcast, I try to be very relatable. I try to be very down to earth, because I realize if you're a teacher of anything, you must make people feel comfortable. When they're comfortable, they will learn. And so I teach as an empath. I teach for very empathetically, you understand? Because I'm very concerned about people that listen to me and what the emotion they live with. So because my education in Nigeria was very, very, was very, very, was very unempathetic. You understand? I've seen people, like, I remember a lecturer that failed me in Ife, just failed me outright. And just said, I can't, and the person just said, the person couldn't see my handwriting, just failed me. I just thought, this guy just gave me like an extra course. And that I almost had an extra session because of that course. You understand? Almost. Just because the guy just felt it wasn't worth taking time to understand what I was writing. It was a waste of his time. And he just gave me an F. You understand? It wasn't a matter of come back and write this exam and make it clear, and I'll put you in a corner to write it. No. It was just F immediately. You understand? And people, we don't understand how we scare people through all this irrational drop of a hard decision. You understand? People just say, it's an extra, you just go and do an extra year now. Just say it like if it doesn't do anything. Just an extra year now. Just do an extra session now. Just a carryover now. I remember when I went to go and complain about that F, and I remember then they actually just told me, okay, just go and do it. It's just an extra session. Just a carryover. You understand? They don't understand the psychological effect these things have on you. No empathy there, and there needs to be empathy in education, so that people can make more informed decisions about where they're going with their lives. So that I don't digress, I'll just say it was a good experience, learning interactive multimedia, because it was learning while playing. And that's, everyone should have the opportunity or the right to enjoy learning. That's what I really think at the end of the day. So I don't know if there are any other questions. I think I have just 5 more minutes before I might have to jump off this call right now. So if there's one more question, I can take one more question.
Okay, does anyone have a question for our guests? If you have a question, just raise your hand, and you'll be called on the stage to speak.
All right. I think there are no other questions. I would like to thank you guys for having me, and thank team and Adeomi. You've been a great host and moderator today. Thanks for allowing me to talk on this subject matter. For those of you that might have questions in future, I have a Telegram channel. I think what I will do is I will share the link with Tim on WhatsApp, and he will be able to share it with, if you have a community. I don't know, do you have a community where you can share information? Or if you can't do that, I think I have the
Definitely.
link. You have a community?
Yes, we do, sir.
I'm
We do.
just
Okay, so I will share the link with you. You can share it to your community. But for those of you that are not part of the community, I think the link is in my Twitter bio, my Telegram group. You can join that, and it's a Q&A group. So it's only for question and answer. So people just come and dump their questions there, and I answer the questions there. But thanks again for having me. I don't take it for granted. I look forward to talking with you guys again in the future.
thank you very much, sir. I would like to hand over now to Tim, our president, Tim, to handle the closing remarks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, has it left?
Okay. Can you hear me now? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's been a very great session today, and Wumi has done remarkably well in moderating it, and many thanks to our speaker, Mr. Tola Alavi, for his time here today. And it's really not just a great session; it's a worthy one to end our IFASA career series. This is the fourth one we are having. The first one we talked about how to get postgraduate, scholarship and stuff abroad in architecture. The second one we talked about, I think LinkedIn optimization for architecture students. The third one we talked about public speaking for architecture students, and this last one we are discussing. We discussed exploring career opportunities outside architecture's the mainstream architecture profession industry for us architecture students. And this we've not done by chance. We were very intentional about these sessions and how we curated them and presented them. We want them to in any way impact or benefit us in our career journey as architecture students. Our administration, is going to be ending by the grace of God next week, and one of the cardinal things that we've put as priority is professional development, and this is one of those initiatives that we've, is established in that light. I believe that these 4 episodes will just be season one of this Ifasa career series, and the next administration led by Inioluwa Favor would be having the season two, and we'll be having more. There is so much to talk about. There is so much to learn. There's so much to discuss, to learn from ourselves, and to enlighten ourselves about, because there's so much to do. And like I always say, yeah, it is not enough to want to do. We must do. We must do. So thank you very much for coming today. Thank you very much for attending the last 3 sessions. Thank you very much for being part of this, and I really hope that this has been impactful to you one way or the other. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mumi, for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
On that note, I guess it's a good night to everybody. Wumi, is that so?
Yes, it's a good night. It's a
Yeah.
wrap.
Yeah. So the session is recorded, yeah, Wumi. It is recorded.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, okay. So just share the link to the recording to the Fasa Allies group and other architecture, maybe the North Southwest, the Western region group and information box group. So everybody that was not part of this will be able to listen in. Thank you very much once again. I've been Tim Ojoibukun. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.